Just when you thought the San Francisco 49ers were going to settle down for a nice, quiet preseason, they go and do something like this. What is good, everybody? Welcome to an emergency instant reaction podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrero. The San Francisco 49ers, if you believe Adam Schefter, and why wouldn't you, are reportedly going to trade for Philadelphia Eagles edge rusher Bryce Huff. Adam Schefter tweeted it out. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on the stream. Niners and Eagles are working to finalize a trade that will send edge rusher Bryce Huff to San Francisco for a mid-round pick. The trade cannot and would not be processed until after June 1st, but both sides are working to make it happen, and Huff has already reworked his contract to help facilitate the trade. Huff will be reunited with former 49ers, for his former head coach, current 49ers defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. So, just when we thought things were going to settle down a little bit for the Niners, they go and do something like this. Now, the question, of course, is how high is the pick, first and foremost, and what exactly are the 49ers getting for this mid-round pick? That is the question. And, of course, I want to know how you feel in the chat. Let me know in the chat what you think of the trade, what you like, what you don't like. I'll take your questions and your comments. As Arjun on YouTube says, is Robert Saleh back in the building? Yeah, this is the interesting thing. And actually, let me see if I can find it. Adam Schefter had a tweet about that, about how the 49ers are going all in on the Saleh guys, basically. He said 49ers have or will add at least 3 former Jets who played under Robert Saleh in the span of a week. Bryce Huff, obviously with this trade, Thomas Morstead, linebacker Chaz Surratt also. They also hired Brant Boyer at the suggestion of Robert Saleh. So their special teams coordinator, I believe, is there as a result of Robert Saleh. Obviously, we all remember Jed York talking about every pick. Saleh's back, Saleh's back, Saleh's back. We know Saleh is getting paid a ton of money for a coordinator. That is sort of an overarching thing here, that Robert Saleh has gotten a lot of sway with this organization right now. A lot of sway. The draft picks, the coordinator, the players that they are bringing in. Robert Saleh's got some juice in San Francisco. And I'm not saying that there's a power struggle with him and Shanahan. All I'm saying is they are giving Saleh everything that he needs to set him up to be successful in 2025 and beyond. That is clear. Leaving says Jets were a solid team last season. Haha, smiley face. Pete 98146 says fantastic move. I will say this. You can never have enough good edge rushers. Ever, ever, ever. There's never been a team in the history of the NFL that had enough pass rushers. So, great. Let's bring on another pass rusher. The question is, what exactly are the 49ers getting with Bryce Huff? If you bring up his Football Reference page, you'll see he spent last year with the Eagles, only 2.5 sacks in 12 games last year with the Eagles, which, you know, you would think, hey, great defense surrounded by a lot of talent. Maybe he should have been able to do more than that, but that's what he did. What the Niners are banking on is what he did the year before going to the Eagles. In 2023 with the Jets, he had 10 sacks in 17 games, 10 tackles for loss. That's what they're hoping for. Also, 21 quarterback hits. And really, if you look at his career, that was the outlier. He really hadn't done anything in his career before that with the Jets. It was really only 2023, and they're hoping that he could recapture some of that glory with Robert Saleh. But again, and I don't know what a mid-round pick is, right? Is a mid-round pick a 3? Is it a 4? You know, if it's a 4, I love this deal. And remember my 3 questions when evaluating any deal, right? Do you love it? Do you need it? Is it a good deal? Do I love Bryce Huff, the player? No, I don't love Bryce Huff, the player. He's got 1 good year in his career. Do I need another pass rusher? Absolutely, I need another pass rusher. Number 3, is it a good deal? Those are my 3 questions. We don't know if it's a good deal yet. If it's a 3rd round pick, I don't know. It's a lot to give up for a guy that has 1 good year in his career. If it's a 4th round pick, then I think it becomes a good deal. So that means I won't regret it. Because if you can answer yes to any of the three questions, love it, need it, good deal. If you can answer yes to two of those three, then it's a good deal. So I need a pass rusher desperately. Is it a good deal? We wait to find out. You know what? If it's a third round pick, that seems a little steep. Tommy Murphy says, who did they trade? It was supposedly for a mid-round pick. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, the Niners, they love their comp picks. They got a lot of comp picks, so maybe it's one of those. I think you're allowed to trade comp picks now. But the Niners desperately needed more help in the trenches. Yetur Gross-Matos is a fine player. You need more than that. You hope Mykel Williams can give you something. You hope Alfred Collins can give you something. You hope CJ West can give you something. But hope is not a strategy, right? You want to bring in players that potentially can make a difference for you. Proven difference maker players. Now, you could argue Bryce Huff isn't exactly proven because he only has the one good year, but at least he's got something. And he's got something with Robert Saleh, who's the guy that's currently running your defense, right? So that is what the 49ers are banking on. No question about it. And we'll see if if it works out for them. But I just like having more guys to throw at this, right? It protects you from injury a little bit more, not totally. It protects you more from injury. It protects you more from ineffectiveness. Because again, you're counting on a lot of rookies to play a heavy role. This lightens that role a little bit. And that is a good thing for the 49ers. Just checking out Bryce Huff's PFF grades for last year. Overall, 68.3. That was 64th among 211 edge rushers. His pass rush grade was 68.2. That was 51st among edge rushers. His run defense was 60.2. That was 102nd among 211 edge rushers. So look, we know what he's there to do, right? That is obvious. He is there to get pressure on the quarterback and rush the passer. That's why you make this move. There is something going off in my head, like a real flashing red light that is like, Howie Roseman is really good at his job. Would Howie Roseman be willing to trade a viable edge rusher for just a mid-round pick if he was any good? And that's not necessarily fair, but it is something that's going off in my head, right? Howie Roseman is not bad at this job. In fact, anytime he calls you for a trade, I would be a little frightened because it feels like he always ends up on the better end of these deals. But it could be a situation where, look, for whatever reason, Bryce Huff with their defense just didn't work out. I don't know why. Maybe they were using him a certain way that just didn't mesh with his skills, and they didn't want to change it up because they thought it would hurt the rest of the defense if they changed it up. I don't know. All right. I'm trying to put a happy spin on this. Maybe the 49ers can come in and do some of the things that Bryce Huff likes and is good at and put him in a better position to succeed. That's what you got to hope for if you're the 49ers right now, quite frankly, is you just got to hope that you can do something that the Eagles couldn't, quite frankly. And again, this is not official yet. I just want to reiterate that it won't go into effect until June 1st. But the fact that Bryce Huff has already reworked his contract means he's going to get traded because they're reworking the contract to trade him. And it's not like, the 49ers are giving up another player. As far as we know right now, it's just a mid-round pick. So I don't know why the deal ultimately wouldn't go through. I think, how many days does May have? Yeah, May has 31 days. So it couldn't go through until Sunday because that's June 1st. And so we'll see. But again, I want to reiterate that it's not totally official yet. I'm just trying to check Twitter really quickly to see. Oh, okay. Now there's a little bit of an update because Ben Solak said mid-round feels suspiciously unspecific, and Schefter replied third day. Hopefully that's a little more specific. So we're not talking about a first-round pick for Bryce Huff. We're not talking about a second-round pick for Bryce Huff or a third-round pick for Bryce Huff. If we're talking third day, we're talking fourth round or beyond. So I revise my earlier statement. It is a good deal. It is a flyer worth taking. You could get a 10-sack guy for a fourth-round pick or beyond. That is a roll of the dice worth taking for the 49ers. Absolutely. 100%. Love it. I will not regret this deal. They need it, and it's a good deal. Yes. Thank you, Adam Schefter, for the clarification. And thank you, Carlos, in the chat. I didn't see that you had already pointed that out. So thank you for that. This is a roll of the dice worth taking if you're the 49ers. What's the worst thing that happens? You get a solid depth piece. You get a guy that, strengthens your defensive line, even if he's not a star. That's okay because you needed that anyway. And to only give up a day 3 draft pick, okay. I am absolutely on board with this. This is a good move for the 49ers. They can still do more. They can continue to add. I would love to see them add like a Zadarius Smith also, right? If you add a Zadarius Smith, who's a free agent right there, and you've added Huff, and you have all the rookies, and obviously Bosa and everybody that's on the roster, then all of a sudden you quiet down some of the questions that this defense has. That would be a really good cherry on the sundae, so to speak, if the 49ers could do that. But this is an absolute move worth taking. Let me see. Obama stole my VCR. Really weird handle, but okay. Says for a day 3 pick, that's a solid deal. Moonman Ed, YouTube channel member. Thank you very much, Moonman Ed, for the support. Says we should have gambled on trying to sign Von Miller. I don't know if I agree with that. I know Von says he can wake up and rush the passer. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I would rather see Zadarius Smith than Von Miller, quite frankly. But they should still keep adding. Definitely. Absolutely. They should still keep adding. I see an Eagles fan in the chat says Emmanuel Blackwell says, fly Eagles, fly. You can have Huff. That seems to be there. They clearly had no use for him, right? If you're giving him up for a day 3 pick, you're like, hey, it's just not working out here for you. We'll take what we can get for you. I feel like that's essentially what the Eagles have said. And again, maybe Howie Roseman is putting one over on the 49ers. It's entirely possible, but maybe it just didn't work out in Philly. Who knows? So I'm trying to check the 49ers beat to see what they're saying. Nothing crazy beyond what I've already said. He had 10 sacks with Saleh. Let's put up David Lombardi. If you want the most positive spin on the trade, let's see what David Lombardi says, because obviously we know that that's his shtick. Says, fascinating trade. Huff logged 10 sacks under Saleh with the Jets in 2023. Fell out of the rotation entirely after getting paid in Philly. Huff is owed a guaranteed $16.75 million this year, most through a prorated option bonus. San Francisco will rework that. Yeah, that's really not much we didn't already know, David, but sure. Thanks for that. Let me check the chat and continue to see some of your comments. I already answered how much would he cost. Mr. J says, what about help on the defensive line? I think that's part of what Huff is, quite frankly. They need upfront guys, so this helps with that. Elric Rivera, I apologize if I got that wrong. Elric says, terrible trade, 3-sack guy. Come on now. Again, if you just look at last year, he had 2.5 sacks, if you want to get technical. So it was even less than 3. If you just look at that and you think that's what the 49ers are getting, then this trade doesn't move the needle that much, right? You're giving up a day 3 pick for, a guy with 2.5 sacks. But if he's anywhere close to a 10-sack guy and you're giving up a day 3 pick, that's a massive difference. That's a massive trade for the 49ers. And again, Bryce Huff doesn't have to get 10 sacks to be, a significant contributor to the 49ers in 2025. That's not what he needs to do. He just needs to give them more than they've gotten from some of their pieces around the 49ers. What if Bryce Huff comes in after this trade? Again, not official yet. What if he comes in after this trade and is somewhere closer to Charles Omenihu in 2022? He had 4.5 sacks. You would hope maybe he could get a little more than that, but Omenihu played damn good for the 49ers that year. He was a significant contributor to the team that year. No question about it. And when they lost guys like him, the defense got a lot worse. So it's a definite roll of the dice by the Niners, but they needed it. They absolutely needed to add more, and they did. And I think it's like I said, it's a roll of the dice worth taking. And good on John Lynch. And, this is sort of a sign of that they haven't lost their sort of aggressiveness, right? We saw with the free agency and everybody that was leaving, we was like, we're taking a step back. We're sort of conceding that we're not going to be in the mix and all of that stuff. And now you see the 49ers shell out money for their contracts, and you see this trade of Bryce Huff. Okay. Now you're like, you know what? Maybe we still do have that aggressive mindset. Maybe we still do think we can make some noise, right? You don't trade for Bryce Huff if you don't think you're going to do anything. Like they're doing this because they're thinking that they're, trying to be in the mix in the NFC. And that's damn good, man. I love seeing that. Who wouldn't? Chris Maldonado, YouTube channel member for 24 months. Thank you so much for the support, Chris. By the way, if you want to become a channel member, it's less than $3 a month. You get priority comment response, custom emojis, membership badges. And also, I started doing some writing on the YouTube page for members only because I miss writing about this team. I don't get the chance to do it often, but I'm trying to, I want to make sure I'm offering good content for you. If you're going to become a member of the channel, I want to make it worth your while. So I just started the first pieces up. It's on Brock Purdy and sort of the way that we analyze quarterbacks. But that is something new that I'm offering. So if you want to become a channel member, you get to check those out as well. Chris says, nice to see 49ers making moves. How good was he? As I said, again, last year, PFF grade 68.3. That was 64th among all edge rushers. His pass rush grade was 68.2, which was 51st among all edge rushers. Again, doesn't need to be the only guy in the line rushing the quarterback, right? But can be a piece. That's going to be the question. Is he going to be a piece in the cog, in the machine? Eagles fan Emmanuel says Howie Roseman is a mastermind, especially in draft picks. Yeah, like you're not wrong, Emmanuel. I can't dispute anything you're saying. That's why it's a little scary. But again, it's only a day 3 pick, according to Adam Schefter. So, what are you really giving up if it doesn't work out? This isn't like a Trey Lance trade, right? We're talking about a day 3 pick. So I'm absolutely happy with the deal. I think it's something that the 49ers were smart to do. I think it's something that, here, let me throw up this tweet from Matt Mayoko. If you're watching on the stream, you could see. I'll read it. If you're not watching, it says the Niners have a lot of compensatory picks coming in 2026, so they have some draft capital to move. Bryce Huff had 10 sacks for Saleh with the Jets in 2023. Yeah, for just a comp pick, why wouldn't you do it? Isn't it worth the risk of a comp pick, which if it's a day 3 comp pick, comes at the end of the round anyway, for a guy that potentially could be near a 10-sack guy, and if, he can recapture some of what worked with Robert Saleh, it's absolutely worth doing. I don't know how you could be mad at this trade. And I'm not saying it's going to work out. I'm saying just the decision to roll the dice, it makes sense. You could see the vision with the 49ers. So I'm absolutely on board with it. Good. And if you're an Eagles fan and you're just happy to get the pick, look, your defense was damn good. It was a Super Bowl caliber defense without much of a contribution from Bryce Huff. So what do you care, right? You get the draft pick. So I don't, not every trade has a winner and a loser. Some trades are good for both sides, and this could be one of them. I hope. Not much on the rest of the 49ers beat. Of course, this deal comes, an hour after I finish my show with Michelle, so we don't get the chance to talk about it. Thanks, John Lynch. He was also on KMBR this morning, and not that I expect him to reveal anything, but, didn't intimate that they would potentially be willing to trade for a pass rusher or even that anything was cooking. That's okay. Never let him know your next move, John Lynch, right? Chris Maldonado says it's worth the risk. Oh, man. Kawachipto says team needed a DPR, and he's proven with this defense. Patrick Garcia says Niner fans are always crying. I don't know who's crying. I'm not. And most of the reaction that I'm seeing in the chat is not crying either. Sencal Fitness says just a depth piece. He might be. He might be just a depth piece, but I think that's the floor, right? The floor is a depth piece. The ceiling is potentially a 10-sack guy. Great. You need both. So what's the harm? And I talk about this a lot, but whenever you add somebody to your unit, right, to your defensive line unit, to your linebacker unit, to your cornerback unit, it's like a baseball lineup. You're lengthening the lineup. You're lessening the load on every individual player in that lineup, and you're putting them in a better position to succeed. Maybe this helps guys get a few more snaps of rest per game, right? So that when they come in, they're a little more refreshed too. It's never a bad thing to add depth to your defensive line. Your pass rushers, this team needs it, right? And not only that, let's say Bosa goes down for a game, right? Not the whole season, but a game. This strengthens you just that little bit to make it just a little bit easier. in that one game that Nick Bosa's not there. So I'm looking at a lot of the Niners content creators seem to be pretty happy with this move, which is not always an easy group to satisfy, by the way. Brad Graham is tweeting out video of Bryce Huff when he was with the Jets. Obviously, that was the 10-sack Bryce Huff that we hope we see. But they needed a pass rush specialist. I'd like to see them add one more. Please and thank you, John Lynch. And then again, this is empowering Robert Saleh. They have set Robert Saleh up. You know, I talked about last year about Nick Sorensen being in a tough spot, right? Like, hey, he's taken over. There's super high expectations, and he doesn't have the horses that, you know, even Steve Wilkes had. The defensive talent overall had really gone down. And, you know, I didn't think Nick Sorensen was a good defensive coordinator, but they didn't do him any favors with the roster that they gave him. With the draft picks that they had on defense this year, with moves like this, they are empowering Robert Saleh. They are saying, we recognize there was a problem, and we're going to give you better pieces and better ingredients, essentially, and we're going to let you do the cooking. And so he's set up in a position to succeed. Absolutely. And I think it does point to the strength that he has in the organization. And I think it does point to the fact that it's an acknowledgement by the 49ers. Hey, we let this slip. Look at the makeup of the roster, right? The vast majority of the talent, the proven talent, is on the offense. George Kittle, all pro. Christian McCaffrey, all pro. Brock Purdy, obviously there. Brandon Ayuk, second team, all pro. Trent Williams, all pro. Kyle Juszczyk, pro bowler. He's a fullback, you know, all the caveats, but whatever. The defense, it's Bosa and Warner. And that was pretty much it in terms of like proven guys. Diamador Lenore looks like he's on his way up. Yes, but I'm talking like, you know, proven guys with pelts on the wall, so to speak. It's those two. James says, what if it's a third but a comp pick? It's a day 3 pick, Schefter said, so it can't be a third because the third round is day 2 pick. So that's good news. Scotty D says, what will the cap hit be? Well, they're reworking his contract. I don't know what the rework terms are, but remember, the 49ers have $50 million in cap room this year. Don't worry. Don't worry about the cap hit this year. They got plenty of room. Plenty of room. The only thing you have to worry about is, did we get better? That's it. Forget the cap. That's for Parag and Brian Hampton to worry about. We just worry about, did the team get better? And I think they did. And I think most of the people in the chat think they did too. Antonio Baker says, Sam and Bryce with Williams and Bosa. Now you can go NASCAR because William and Sam can play inside and Bosa and Bryce can play outside. That is something that the 49ers value with their defensive line. They like to be able to move people around. They've already talked about Mykel Williams, how they want to move him inside at different times, and how they were attracted to him in part because he moved around so much in college. So I do think that is something that they want to do, for sure. Michael Robinson Jr. says, couple more vet players to the Niners, and we shock the world with a Super Bowl this year and leave the league shook for years to come. It's time. Well, I'm not. That may be a step further than I'm willing to go on May 30th at this point. But again, this is a good move. No reason not to like this move. Papa J says, I would much rather have a bunch of mid-rotating defensive players that we can rotate versus one expensive, high-rated player that could be injured at any time. I agree with you, Papa J, but also, how about both? Let's have both, right? Like, yes, let's get some rotating depth pieces and some really good players. And that's the thing that the 49ers, I think, are trying to build, quite frankly. David Castro asks, chances they go after the defensive tackle on the Bengals. I think you're talking about Trey Hendrickson, in which case he's an edge rusher. I would love it if they did, but this probably leads me to believe that they are not going to. I mean, hell, if they did, it would be awesome because, yeah, I would love to add a guy that had 17.5 sacks for each of the last 2 seasons to the team. But considering Huff, does make a significant chunk of money, I don't think that probably takes them out of the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes, but you know what? Maybe not. Maybe they're just going to say bleep it and move all the chips into the middle of the table again. What the hell do I know? Again, you can never have enough pass rushers, so I would support it if they did that. Antonio says Bryce was having a bad season because of the system he was in. This helps the Niners. That's why I said day 3 pick. I don't know. I would need to talk. Maybe I'll talk to my friend Brandon Gowden, who covers the Eagles for Bleeding Green Nation, and ask him like what happened with Huff last year and why he thinks it didn't work out. Maybe get a little more intel for you guys. But again, it's a mid-round day 3 pick. And now it looks like we got a little bit of the financial details here. Let me throw them up on the screen. David Lombardi says, according to Adam Schefter, Philadelphia is paying $9.05 million of Bryce Huff's $17 million salary, which is fully guaranteed. The Niners are picking up $7.95 million. For less than $8 million and a day 3 pick, the 49ers added a guy that 2 years ago had 10 sacks. Yes, please. Like, I'm sorry, you'll never go broke making those kind of moves. This is a good move for the 49ers. It also kind of shows how eager the Eagles were to get rid of him, quite frankly. But the Eagles are saving money on the deal because that's less money than they would have had to pay Bryce Huff. They're getting a draft pick back, so that's why they're doing it. All right. The more we hear about this deal, the better it looks for the 49ers, quite frankly. So if there's anyone in the chat that doesn't like it, I got to know your reasons. And it better be more than just he only had 2.5 sacks last year. Because, again, you still need a depth, even if you're not getting a star player. You still need a depth on the D-line along the edge. So it's a win for everybody. Lori Kings says win-win for everybody. I agree. Antonio says decent steal. Another Antonio says, I'm not interested in paying $30 million to 2 defensive ends when we have one that had back-to-back bad seasons coming off a defensive player of the year. If a bad season for Nick Bosa is what we saw last year, I mean, you have a really high bar. Like, Bosa gets picked on a lot because people expect him to have a sack on every play and every third down. But I just want to remind people that Nick Bosa had 9 sacks last year in 14 games. That is not a bad season. It might not be the season you were hoping for, but it's not a bad season. We gotta, let's be realistic here about how we're evaluating these things. Again, yes, I agree you might have expected more from him, but it's not a bad season. A bad season is a 2.5 sacks from Nick Bosa. That would be a bad season. That is not what he had. That is not what he's ever had. So again, Niners, again, not official. Want to just point that out. It's not actually official, but this looks like it's going to be a June 1 thing. So that would be Sunday, would be the day that this can go through. But Bryce Huff has already reworked his contract, so it seems like it's just a formality. Niners guys are tweeting about it. Eagles guys are tweeting about it. Nationals guys are talking about it. So, yeah, it sounds like this is happening. Good move for the 49ers. Papa says, Rob, do you think we need more help in the defense or in the wide receiving department? Yes, on defense. Maybe in the wide receiving department. Maybe. If Pearsall can come back for training camp, then I say bleep it. Let's roll with Pearsall and Jennings and Cowing and Jordan Watkins and George Kittle. Let's not forget about him. And I say let's roll with those pass rushers, or receivers, and Demarcus Robinson when he comes back. So if Pearsall really is healthy for training camp and comes back and is good to go, then no, I don't think they need to add a wide receiver. And John Lynch said, for what it's worth on KMBR, John Lynch was asked about adding a wideout. Here's what he said.
You never close the door on that. I don't think we have to. Like I said.
So that was John Lynch on KMBR this morning, like hours ago. So he says right now they're not looking to add a wide receiver. So that should answer your question a little bit. Dirty Slippers on YouTube says this is becoming Robert Saleh's team, it seems. It's certainly Robert Saleh's defense. That much is clear. And why wouldn't you want to empower your defensive coordinator? You're paying him a ton of money, like we said. You desperately needed a fix on defense because the defense was a sieve by the end of last year. Why wouldn't you want to give Robert Saleh things that he's asking for? Oh, sorry. Are people saying you didn't hear the John Lynch? Here, let me play it again.
You never close the door on that. I don't think we have to. Like I said, I think there's a lot of quality and a lot of competition, and you kind of let that play out. And if an opportunity presents itself to get better, then we'll always be interested in that. But right now, we don't feel like we're in a situation where we have to.
Sorry about that. I needed to cough, so I muted myself. I'm losing my voice a little bit here, so I muted that. I forgot. I can still hear it when I mute myself when it plays, but I forgot that you don't hear it. So I apologize for that, but glad we got it in. Thank you very much, chat, for keeping me on track. Half Dead says, anyone that's hoping Saleh takes over if Shanahan gets fired is an idiot. I don't know about that, but how about we just don't get into that situation? How about things work out for the 49ers and they have two really good coaches instead of firing Kyle Shanahan? I kind of support that plan, all right? Can we let the schedule play out before we're firing Kyle Shanahan? I mean, I talked about it in the show with Michelle a little earlier. The schedule is freaking easy, okay? I'm sorry, it is. And I know that like nothing is easy in the NFL and blah, blah, blah. But just when you compare it to other teams in the league, the 49ers schedule should set them up for success. Period. End of discussion. I mean, look at it. If you're watching on the stream, you could see it. First 4 weeks, Seattle, New Orleans, Arizona, Jacksonville. There's a world where the 49ers start the year 4-0. Maybe they lose one of the division games, but really I think 3-1 is what you should be expecting early in the year, barring any catastrophic injuries. The next week, LA, Tampa, Atlanta, and Houston. This one's a little dicier, right? Those are the 3 out of those 4 games are toss-ups, to be honest with you. The Rams beat the Niners twice last year. I know the Niners beat Tampa, but Tampa's a good team. They were a playoff team. Houston was a playoff team also. DeMeco Ryans, there's that element. So that could be a tough 4-week stretch. But after that, the Giants, who stink, Rams and Cardinals, the Panthers, who stink. And then you got Cleveland, Tennessee, Indy. They all stink. Then you finish with the Bears and the Seahawks. So again, do you have to be as talented as the 2023 Niners to make the playoffs with this schedule? Hell no. Are the Niners as talented as the 2023 squad? Hell no. But that's okay because they don't have to be. They don't have to be. And, you know, we're kind of spoiled by those teams, right? Because we've seen what it can look like when they're amazing. But those teams didn't win the Super Bowl. So just get into the playoffs, as I have said many times, and we'll roll the dice. And we will see what ultimately will happen. Half Dead says people are sleeping on Arizona. No, we're not sleeping on Arizona. We want them to prove it. I know they made a lot of additions to the defense, and good for them. You know, Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat, I think. And obviously they drafted Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. And okay, maybe they'll be better, but they just have to prove it. That's all. They just have to prove it. All right, I think that's going to do it for this emergency reaction show, everybody. Thank you so much for all your questions and comments. I really appreciate it. Obviously did not expect this flying solo today, but you know, when the Niners make moves, we go live and we react and we, you know, want to be here for you every time we go live. So if this is your first time checking us out, thank you very much. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Just went over 50,000 subs. Thank you so much. But if it is your first time coming, we're live every single day. We go live after breaking news clearly. Give us a chance. I promise you, you'll like what you see. If you want to follow me on all the socials, anywhere, I am at Stats on Fire. I would appreciate it. I'm always here for the arguments, as we say. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, everybody. Thank you very much, and go damn Niners.